The majority of us are lucky to be born completely normal, and we honestly take it for granted. There are hundreds of diseases and deformities around the world that people are born with. Fortunately, we also live during a time when medicine is the best it's ever been, so living with these conditions is entirely possible for people. What would you do if you were born with one eye or size 16 feet? These people actually were. Here are the 10 most unusual human deformities. Turtle Boy.
This boy wants to be just like any other child his age, but he was born with a rare and life-threatening condition.
Didier Montalvo has been called the Turtle Boy by his local village because of his gigantic mole that has grown over his entire back. Him and his family have been outcasted and treated poorly just because of how he looks. He kept asking his family why he had the deformity and was very sad about it. The mole covers Didier's back, and the shape of it makes it look like he's wearing a turtle shell. After pictures of the unfortunate kid's life, the story went viral, and the entire world knew about Turtle Boy. One of these people was plastic surgeon Neil Bulstrode. The doctor was touched by the story and decided to operate for free on Didier. The result was that the entire mole was removed. Can you imagine losing 20% of your body weight overnight? Fish Boy.
This is Minh An, a Vietnamese boy with a rare and terrible skin condition.
There's been a theory that humans have evolved from fish, and this next example might be evidence that that is true. Pan Jin Young was born with an extremely rare disease called ichthyosis, making his skin very sensitive and painful. The effects of the disease altered his eyes, nose, mouth, ears, and soon his entire body. There is no cure for his condition, but cold water and some creams do alleviate the pain. One-eye baby. Suryanti Arianto and her husband were devastated when she gave birth to her 5th child and saw her for the first time. The woman did not have any ultrasounds, so she didn't anticipate what they saw. To their horror, they saw that their daughter was born with numerous deformities. For starters, she was very small, weighing in at only 5 pounds. But the most obvious thing was that she had one eye in the center of her forehead. Known as the Cyclops baby from the internet, the newborn infant also didn't have a nose. You can't even imagine how distraught her parents were. She was immediately put into the intensive care unit, but sadly, she passed away later that night. The biggest issue was that without a nose, there was too little oxygen getting into the body. The Elephant Man.
You ready for tea?
Joseph Merrick got his nickname Elephant Man because he was a star in a freak show. He was born in 1862 and looked completely normal until a few years into his life where he showed signs of deformities. The very first symptoms of his body changing were that his lips started to swell. On top of this, his skin began to become very abnormal. There were dozens of weird bumps and lumps that began to grow all over his body. Because of his lips, he had difficulty talking, and soon after a very bony lump formed on his forehead, making him even more disformed. To make matters worse, only his right arm and feet grew at an insanely fast rate compared to the rest of him. This made working a regular job nearly impossible, so he had to become part of the freak show. 24. "24 sounds like a really cool nickname, but you be the judge about Yohinda Hernandez Guerrero's deformity. He was born with 12 fingers and 12 toes, and in an interview he said that his condition was a blessing rather than a curse. He's made a great living off the way he was born. Through taking pictures with tourists and climbing up coconut trees easier, he's made a name for himself. The condition is known as polydactyl and is more common than people think. It happens 1 in every 1,000 kids born and is usually genetic. However, 24 is the only one with the condition in his entire family, and they all are very proud of him. The Mask. At first glance, this child looks like he's wearing a mask, but in reality he was born with a rare deformity. Hui Kang of China was born with a transverse facial cleft, and because of this, it looks like he has two faces. His mother was absolutely devastated when she first saw her child, because in every ultrasound prior to birth, it appeared the baby was absolutely normal. Once the media got hold of this news, Hui Kang's story blew up, and the public raised over $40,000 for plastic surgery. The surgery was completed, but he won't know if it's effective until he's fully grown up. After all, bone growth is completed. Hopefully, Hui Kang makes a full recovery and can live a normal life with society. Did you think it was just a mask at first look? Proteus syndrome.
I believe that having the amputation on my foot, it would help me walk, move myself around, be able to wear shoes again.
If you thought size 11 feet were big, then you haven't seen Jeffrey Ortega's. Suffering from Proteus syndrome, Jeffrey has a size 16 left foot, while his right foot is not that much smaller. His unique condition has affected other parts of his body too, as the condition makes bones and skin to overgrow. Nothing is deformed as much as his feet though, and he has described in interviews that they are constantly in pain. Because of this, he uses a wheelchair to get around, and his mother has to help him wash his feet in order to relieve the pain. Jeffrey stated that he feels as though the only solution is to amputate his left foot. He cannot wear any normal shoes and is extremely self-conscious about the way his feet look. Hopefully, Jeffrey's syndrome can be fixed soon. Craniopagus parasiticus.
There's a man in the Philippines with an extraordinary and undiagnosed condition.
Rudy Santos made a ton of money in freak shows because of his rare condition called Craniopagus parasiticus, or parasitic twin. He was born with an extra leg and two arms that had shoulders and nipples. They were attached to his pelvis area and were completely dysfunctional. On top of this, he had an underdeveloped head growing near his sternum, and his right leg was severely deformed and unusable. Later in life, doctors informed him that it was possible to remove his extra appendage. Rudy explained that he actually grew fond of them and didn't want to have the surgery. What would you have done if you had spent your entire life like that and were given an opportunity to fix it? Phocomelia.
She has this disease called phocomelia. She doesn't have her two hands and one feet.
Nasiba's story truly touches the heart. Being born with phocomelia, the 12-year-old lives with very underdeveloped limbs and no pelvic bones. From this, her mobility is very low and she struggles with everyday tasks. However, this deformity has not stopped her from living a normal life. She has one working leg and is able to do many tasks that the average person can do. This includes writing, eating, combing, and more. She's also excelled at her special needs school, where she found her passion, teaching. After tutoring other kids with disabilities, she determined that her lifelong goal was to become a teacher and help those in need. Nasiba's lack of limbs has only strengthened her love and kindness for others. Tree Man.
This is the story of the search for a cure for 36-year-old Dede bin Ateng, known as half man, half tree.
If you ever take a quick glance at Dede Kazwara, you would think he's wearing a costume or something. The unfortunate truth is that he suffers from an extremely rare condition that makes him look like a tree. Although from a small village in Indonesia, Tree Man has gained immense internet fame. Bark-like areas and patches began to grow all over his skin, especially his hands and feet. The areas are warts that have taken an extreme form, and even surgeons removed 95% of it all, and it still came back. We hope you enjoyed this video on the 10 most unusual human deformities. If you liked this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up, and let us know which deformity was the most interesting. As always, thanks for watching.